When Half-Life launched in 1998, it came with the tagline Run, Think, Shoot, Live, and naturally, I got to thinking about whether you could beat the game without doing any of that. Thing is, 3 of them aren't on the table for various reasons, so that leaves beating the game without running. After all, the Black Mesa Research Facility is staffed with highly trained professionals, and what do professionals not do? Run all over the place like a child. So I'm going to attempt to beat Half-Life while walking everywhere. There's a console command in the Gold Source engine called Speed, which acts as a speed limiter, reducing the maximum number of units you can move per second. It's normally bound to the Shift key on the PC version. You never need to use this, but it does help with lining up precise jumps or walking on thin platforms. And I'm gonna play with this command forced on all the time. By default, when you hold forward, Gordon Freeman runs at 320 hammer units per second and crouch walks at 106. If you type plus speed into the console, you now move at 120 units per second and crouch walk at about 40. Typing minus speed removes the restriction. So yes, if you type plus speed, you get less speed, and if you type minus speed, you gain speed back, which I know sounds counterintuitive, but I didn't name this stuff. For this challenge, I attempted to get through all 17 chapters without turning running speed back on, and without using any major movement glitches like bunny hopping or any scripts to bind a string of inputs to one key. I loaded up a new game and immediately turned this command on once the map loaded, then proceeded as normal. Now, while it isn't part of the actual campaign, I wanted to try the hazard course first. Most of the opening parts are straightforward, jumping over obstacles isn't any different, and we can still crouch jump to get a little bit of height, which is very helpful. Side note, Kazi Matman made a video where he played through the game while crouching all the time, which partially inspired this one, so make sure you give that a watch, but not before you finish this video. Back to the hazard course, I was unfortunately stymied early on with this set of 3 jumps. Gordon needs a running start to get across the gaps, and I noticed that moving diagonally provides a little more distance, but even that wouldn't get me across, so hazard course sadly isn't possible. For curiosity's sake, I disabled the command, got past the jumps, and then turned the command back on, and I beat the rest of the training level without any trouble. The toughest part was the rotating bridge. Getting onto it wasn't an issue, but the jump to the other end looked a bit far, but thankfully these containers let me hop across. First time I've used these to beat the hazard course actually, usually I just run and jump off the bridge. After giving the security guards a present, I finished the training and moved on to the main game. As a quick heads up, I played all of this on medium because I'm a medium guy, and also because that only affects enemy damage and health, and how much health and armor you recover, and I thought this challenge would be hard enough without seriously managing resources. I don't need to tell you that the opening tram ride is completely possible while walking, and so is the entire Anomalous Materials chapter since there's no speed required. I mean, Gordon was already running late, might as well just casually stroll around and make some breakfast before we go.
My God, what are you doing?
Then it was off to the test chamber. One quick note, ladders work the same with the speed command on, so you'll move up and down them as usual. The run really begins with unforeseen consequences. After I got out of the lab and, persuaded Barney to give me his gun, I headed back to the entrance to go through the previously inaccessible area. By dragging this scientist along, he opened up a normally locked door so I could get some supplies, including grenades, which are going to be important later on. After giving the scientist a present, I fell into the drain pipe, climbed out the other side, and took the Akira elevator down while dodging all the head crabs. The first real test of this challenge was this room where a spawning bull squid destroys the walkway. You're intended to jump onto these pipes along the wall to enter a nearby vent, and it is possible while walking, albeit a little tighter. From here, it's down into the sewers and off to the suspended crate room. I thought this would be scary at first, but it actually wasn't too bad. The range you can safely land on extends a bit past each crate, so there is more margin for error than you'd think. Anyway, I jumped down and I've reached the other side of the sewers, so unforeseen consequences is done. Office Complex starts with a long vent crawl section, and something I haven't mentioned yet is that your crouching speed while walking is weirdly flexible. As in, it's easy to lose speed by turning around too much, which will make vents far more annoying. The flooded lab is possible with only a little bit of electrical damage, and after going through more vents, I fell through the ceiling and made it to the room with the turret. I wanted to see if I could turn this thing off, and I could without taking too many pot shots. Grabbing the shotgun, I gave the head crabs a present and headed to the admin offices for some Mortal Kombat, which wasn't too bad with the help of the nearby security guard until he decided to betray me like an asshole.
See that shot?
After dispensing justice, I healed up and met my best friend, the dancing scientist.
I predicted all of this, you know. All of it.
After that, there isn't much to report until I reached the freezer. That slow crouch walk speed meant that I got clipped between the moving platform and the wall, sapping some of my armor, but thankfully after getting unstuck, the jump was no problem. Then more vents, meeting a mysterious friend, and encountering the elevator shaft jump, aka our first roadblock. As you can see, this is impossible while just walking and jumping, even when moving diagonally. I had an idea where I'd push an object to the edge of the shaft to get a bit of extra height, and I found this barrel that looked promising even though I'd have to push it a long way. Unfortunately, I couldn't get it past the top of this ramp, and even if I did, I'd then have to push it up these stairs, which I'm sure wouldn't work. So I resorted to another movement trick, grenade boosting. In addition to damaging you, an explosion also pushes you away from the center of the blast, and you can take advantage of this to get some airtime. This is an intended mechanic and thus not a glitch, although you could argue it goes against the spirit of the challenge. I'll keep a tally of how many weapon boosts I do, since, spoiler alert, this isn't just reserved for grenades, so we'll set this at 1. However, doing this with grenades is significantly less effective if you have any armor, so first I persuaded Barney into taking it away before thanking him with a few whacks. Then I lined myself up, tossed a grenade down, leaped off the edge, and the blast pushed me over to the ladder. Thankfully, the jump at the top of the shaft is much shorter, so I entered the broken elevator to finish the chapter. We've Got Hostiles introduces us to the military, starting with the turrets. Avoiding them meant dodging the laser beams, which is sometimes pretty tricky. These fire doors help a lot, although with this one, the scientists are in the way and love tripping the beams by themselves, which is a bit problematic. So they had to die. Don't worry though, I saved this scientist's life by distracting the HECU soldier, so my karma is rebalanced. On the subject of the HECU, while they aren't the deadliest enemy, they are certainly more of a problem when you can't run, especially in open areas. These first two encounters take place in rooms with boxes and pillars, so getting out of their way is easier, but they sometimes racked up quite the carnage against poor old Freeman. This conveyor belt here is going too fast for you to walk inside while crouching, but it doesn't lead anywhere important, thankfully. More rooms, more soldiers, more barnacles, which aren't that much of a threat since you can just walk around their tongues, and I made it to the surface. It's far better to walk directly to the bunker exit than actually fight the soldiers here because with some luck, they won't get the chance to shoot at you since they're too busy regrouping. Back into the vents, which means more crawling around and getting lost since I can never remember where all these paths go. Yippee. While I stumbled through these air ducts, I did want to pause and make an announcement. Channel memberships and super thanks are now available if you want to support this channel directly. There are 3 membership tiers starting at just $1 a month, and you can unlock perks like having your name displayed or read out in the credits, early access to videos, and member-exclusive community posts and polls. No member-exclusive videos though, I am not about that. If you want to become a member, just click that join button below the video and select your tier. Or if you'd rather do a one-time donation, you can click the thanks button instead. I want to be clear, becoming a member or donating is not required nor expected. It is solely there if you have the ability and desire to throw some money my way. So please only consider joining if you want to and have the money to do so. And if you can't or don't want to, that's totally cool. I hope you enjoyed this video regardless, and you can always subscribe if you just want to see the content I make. And feel free to leave a like and a comment, that helps a lot too. Anyway, back to the run, and wow, I am still in the vents, so let's skip ahead. After giving these soldiers a present, I opened the silo door and dealt with the big bully scientist.
Judging from your hazard suit, I'd say you were part of what went wrong.
Heading into Blast Pit, there's thankfully a break from combat, but the downside is it's replaced with platforming. I mean, this toxic goo segment isn't bad, but coming out to the missile silo, I had to make sure that I didn't blow up this walkway here, because it isn't feasible to jump across the gap that's created while walking, and while a grenade boost would make that easy, I could also just, not destroy it in the first place. Easier said than done with the head crabs and hound eyes walking around. After giving the tentacles some presents, I headed off to the fuel and oxygen controls. By the way, this walkway I can blow up without issue thanks to these pipes. Nice. Ah, the fan room, the most illogical one in the game, and that's saying something. If you're unfamiliar, there's a giant vertical fan that you use to fly upward, but the switch to turn it on is under the blades. So you climb beneath the fan, hit the button, run back up, and ride the current. If you run back up the ladder immediately, it's all good, but while walking, you gotta delay it a bit. When I turned it on and immediately walked back, the first fan blade pushed me off the ladder. I paused for a bit to let that blade pass by, and up I went. Otherwise, the trip to the fuel oxy switch was uneventful, which means it's back to the silo to give more presence to the tentacles and head down to the power generator. Here, the grating is partially destroyed, and my walking jump speed wasn't enough to make it across, even diagonally. That might sound bad, but I have a clever trick up my sleeve. See, there's an interesting property in this game where if you walk perpendicular to a wall, then hold forward and whatever direction is toward the wall, you'll gain a bit of speed as long as you keep hugging that wall. This is known as wall strafing in the Half-Life community. The speed you get depends on your angle, but generally it seems to increase it by around 25 or 30%, which can sometimes make the difference between a successful jump and a fall. In this instance, I hugged the right wall and made it across after a few tries. You may have noticed me doing this earlier in the run, and I didn't mention it until now since this is the first time I was required to do it. I'll also be counting these instances when wall strafing is necessary, so that's one so far. Right after this part, the ceiling collapses to destroy even more of the grating, and this gap is even larger, so after reloading a save, I power walked and jumped at the last second to reach the other side before it breaks. I then turned on the generator without issue, but then I had to do these same silo jumps in reverse. The first of these seems barely too large even when wall strafing, so a grenade boost is in order. I had some armor to slag off first, and that's where these barrels came in clutch. One grenade boost later, which took some time since my health was kinda low and occasionally a grenade would clip through the corner, and I made it across with just 7 health. Sheesh. The last jump once again requires wall strafing on the left side, and I dropped a few more presents for the tentacles before crawling back up and leaving them the greatest present of all. And listen to how happy they are. I headed down through the exhaust tunnel and quickly swam through this part, which was terrifying because of my low health, but thankfully there's a charger right here. Thanks, game. More pipe crawling with a somewhat difficult jump in the middle to reach that part where the pipe crumbles beneath you and you land on a table to cushion your fall. And I don't know whether it was how little health I had or if something was just glitching out, but I could not land this no matter what I tried. Even crouching to break my fall didn't help. Thankfully, I got around it by triggering the collapse, then immediately walking back, then jumping down these metal struts to lessen the fall damage. I've never had to do this to survive the table fall before, and I'm almost certain it's not because of the walking restriction, but I thought it worth mentioning regardless. The first obstacle and power-up is the Gargantua, who laser focused on me after only killing one of the soldiers, but I dodged it with some wall strafing and a bit of luck. The quest to turn the power back on is mostly uneventful, just some grunts and aliens to deal with, but as we began this part, this walkway collapses and even with wall strafing, I couldn't reach it, which means I can't walk back through the way I came in and had to leap past the Gargantua from the control center. Otherwise I'd have to do a weapon boost. And the jump from the window is very frightening when you can only limp away from him and you need to bait him into chasing you. I took some flame damage, but then he stopped, letting me reach the switch before he could catch up, and I just barely reset the track power before he clobbered me. Gargantua turned into Gargantua, and it was on to everybody's favorite section, on a rail. This part's also not that interesting for a walking challenge. You're on a cart for most of the chapter, and it works no differently when you're walking, and the off-rail sections are mostly combat related, and there's not much to talk about. Now, I could dodge this soldier's rockets and try to snipe him from afar, but I instead decided to send the cart forward at a slower speed, hide in this alcove, let the cart run into the trip mine to blow him up, and wall strafe to catch up with my ride. That's not a required wall strafe, but it was interesting regardless. And it's funny, usually the cart is an anchor that makes this chapter slow, but now I'm the slow one, and the cart is a welcome boost of speed. Keep in mind too, that turning on the speed command isn't even the slowest way to move. Gordon also slows down if you hold the use key, and at least on legacy builds, it brings you down to a crawl and wall strafing suddenly doesn't work. This seems to have been changed as of the 25th anniversary edition. While crouch walking is still mega slow with this, holding the use key now makes you walk exactly as fast as you do with the speed command on. So if you're curious about that, well, there you go. Back to the rails, where I dodged some crates, sidestepped some more rockets, gave a present to these soldiers, got shot by the sniper I forgot was out here, launched the missile, got shot by the sniper again, and headed on the cart to apprehension. This area has a lot of swimming sections, and you move at the same speed underwater, making every dive more life-threatening. Thankfully, I still made the jump from these floating barrels to the walkway with ease. There were enough water pockets between each diving section for me to not lose too much oxygen, although the leeches sapped a fair chunk of my armor. I grabbed the crossbow from the shark cage, took the ichthyosaur down, which wasn't necessary but I did it anyway, and barnacled up to the next area. This room has some jumps on broken walkways above the ichthyosaur-infested pool, and while the first one might be clearable while walking, there's a ladder on the other side, so I just skipped it. This second gap is also too large when walking, and I first tried to do this without a weapon boost by floating at the edge and hoping one of the ichthyosaurs would bounce me up, but they would not cooperate. Either they were biting me or jumping on top of me, so I moved on. I grenade boosted across the gap, but I'm not adjusting the count because it turns out you can just swim up to the hole in the grating and jump through. So no boost necessary. Now if only past Grey J reloaded the quick save before blowing myself up so I wouldn't have so little health. This puzzle with the pistons isn't possible while walking, and while a series of boosts would probably get you across, I wasn't in any shape to try. Thankfully there's a box we can push from the upper walkway to this container here, then hop on top to break this crate and climb up the ladder, skipping the puzzle entirely. Then I healed up and spent a few minutes grenade boosting to this platform with the 2 satchels, which is entirely unnecessary, but I did it for the swag, and then reloaded my save because being healthy is better than being cool. I made it through the freezer and up to the cargo area where I gave some presents to the assassins and got captured by soldiers. So what, you guys didn't like your presents? Escaping the trash compactor is easy enough, and residue processing is up next. This level seems more intimidating than it actually is. Getting across the vats of goo is fine as long as you're willing to take some damage, swimming through the garbage compactor is pretty forgiving, and the conveyor belts all move in the right direction so there's no issue there. The only dangerous part is this conveyor belt vent with trip mines in it. Shooting the first one works, but I couldn't move back through the vent since the belt is moving too fast, so I just tanked the second trip mine since I couldn't destroy it remotely with a satchel. I next grappled with questionable ethics, and also, I started the chapter. Immediately you're introduced to the alien grunts, and with my limited weapon supply and health, they are a sizable threat. I dealt with that, gave the soldiers a present, and navigated the test labs without any real interesting stuff happening. These maps have as much platforming as Gordon has things to say, and regaining weapons along the way gives us all the needed offense against the enemies. Oh, also, I got the Tau cannon. Just mentioning that for later. Anyway, I stopped the spinning blades to guide the scientists to the exit, and hey ho, it's surface tension time. The first problem with this chapter is dealing with the helicopter, which is going to wreck you when you can't run. I guess you could let it take pot shots at you, but I took it down with the Tau cannon anyway. Hesitantly, since I wanted to save ammo for other stuff, as you'll see soon. Anyway, I took the Black Hawk down, it's just a pun, don't come at me, and swam underneath the dam, which was tight thanks to my low health. In the climb up the concrete wall, I wanted to reach these supplies over here, but the gap was too wide, so I whipped out the Tau cannon and did a Tau boost with the alt fire. This is basically a grenade boost but far less dangerous since you avoid damaging yourself if you aim it right. This isn't required of course, so the weapon boost count is still at 2. After wrecking another helicopter and navigating through the minefield, I jumped into the manhole and headed to the cliffside. I showed off my tight-roping skills, grabbed the rocket launcher to destroy another helicopter, and scaled up the cliffs to fight more soldiers and the tank. Riskier than usual since this tank fires shots that instantly explode where it's aiming, but I got it done. The second tank also took some back and forth, but once again, strafing to dodge its rockets won me the day. After giving the security guard a present, I dealt with the mines, gave more presents to the snipers, then hopped into the ordnance storage building. This part wants you to go slow, which makes it very harmonious for a walking challenge. Normally you run and jump onto the elevator in the center, but I placed a trip mine to climb up there, and it just fits the decor, you know? Also good to get some use out of these things, I've been lugging them around for a while. More human and alien soldiers to deal with, plus a big resupply, which is very helpful, and then it's time to climb the fire escape. I couldn't make it across the electrical box gap here, so I did a Tau boost, and then to get across to the fire ladder, I also couldn't make this even with wall strafing speed, and thus resorted to another boost. I feel that both of these may be possible boost lists, so feel free to try this yourself, but I'll call it 4 boosts for now. The next jump from the broken ceiling is also too far when walking, so that's yet another Tau boost for the count. 3 in a row! I annihilated more alien swarms and dealt with the HECU in the garage with my snark buddies, and thanks to this little platform in the warehouse, this gap is very easy. On to the next building, where this soldier lighting up the pipe nearly cooked my goose, but I made it into the water tank with some time to spare, so I got out and delivered another present.
Stand back. Hello.
Surface tension is almost done, I just have to deal with the Gargantua chase. Or rather, the lack of a chase? I forget if he just doesn't come after you if you get out of the parking tunnel quickly enough, but he gave me plenty of time to get to the tactical map so I could blow him down. Oh, by the way, these high jump platforms work as normal when you're walking, thankfully. Next chapter. I don't have anything to say about Forget About Freeman. It's combat focused with very minimal platforming, plus it's pretty short, and land decor is a bit of a breather before the final stretch, but I'll cover the cliff notes. I killed the last of the assassins, turned on the 2 pump stations, and swam through the coolant system to climb the reactor, the last jump of which is just barely possible. The teleporter puzzles are no different than usual, and in the inner chamber, the scientist gave me the long jump module, which, what do you know, acts identically even when walking. This would have been a surprise, but since I played the hazard course beforehand, I kinda knew about this already, and I did my best to avoid abusing this function. Thank God it works as it does though, since it means the first Zen map is doable without any weapon boosting. I descended the floating platforms to enter the butterfly room and warp to the Gonarch boss fight, which goes as you'd expect since there aren't any complex jumps here. Mama Headcrab did a little dance for me, so I killed her, and moved on to the second to last chapter, Interloper. After hitching a ride on the alien aircraft, I elected to take the stealth route through the next map since it's my preferred path through this part, and at least going this way, there aren't any walking related issues. The only difficulties with the alien factory are combat related, so after making it through the last of the enemy forces, it was time to face off against the Nihilith. Actually attacking the Nihilith is not any different, I just had to watch out for his teleportation attack. I can confirm that at least the first 2 chambers he can send you to can be escaped while walking, and with this boss fight done and dusted, all there was left to do was reject the G-Man's offer because I had stepped away from my computer and didn't come back until the door shut. Oops. So that brings us back to the question of the video. Can you beat Half-Life while walking everywhere? Well, the answer is yes, if you allow for 2 required instances of wall strafing and 5 weapon boosts. If you don't, then the answer is no. But I hear what at least one of you is saying. What about the demo uplink? That was included in the 25th anniversary patch after all, so for a special little treat, I'll look at this real quick. After getting the pistol and crowbar, the demo immediately threw me into an open area with HECU grunts, and with the weakest gun in the game as my only ranged option, they took a lot of my health. After I killed them, I jumped onto the moving crate and went to take down the rocket launcher. This gap is easily clearable, and with grenades, I took care of the rockets and even managed to make this gap to a hidden compartment with wall strafing speed. The rest of Uplink was easy. I dealt with more grunts, realigned the satellite, traveled back through the tunnels, and met up with a dying colleague.
Well, I seem to be seriously wounded. I don't think I can last much longer. Stop!
Then I traversed back through the war zone, gave the security guard a present, hopped into a vent, fell into a room with the rampaging Gargantua, and G-Man's your uncle. No boosts of any kind required. Throughout this whole thing, it's amazing to me that the only thing I couldn't complete was the hazard course of all things. I assumed this challenge would be much more unforgiving, but most of the platforming was comfortable enough, and at least during the main story, the game gives you the tools you need to make it through every situation. I guess running wasn't as important as the tagline would have you think, Gabe. Let me know if you want to see me tackle Opposing Force, Blue Shift, and Decay with this challenge as well. This was a fun experiment, and I'm happy to keep it going. The speed command is in Half-Life 2, but it actually works the opposite there since it enables you to sprint. Although there is a different walking command, so an all-walking run might be possible for the Source Engine games as well. Regardless, if you want to see me take on more video game challenges and answer other arbitrary questions, why not click that little subscribe button down there and leave a like and a comment. And as a reminder, you can become a channel member now, or give me a super thanks if you want to contribute to this channel directly. Again, totally up to you, and please only do this if you have the means and you want to. I'm GrayJ, and I'll see you some other time with more silly things.